Lawan of the main opposition party, People Democratic Party, was declared the winner of the gubernatorial election in Zamfara State on the March 18th. But the appeal court have actually sacked him as the governor of the state, hoping to run a re-election again in the state, with 3 local governments being affected. Today on the program, we will be looking at that story and other stories as they relate to Nigeria. The program is Nieria Now. I'm Sela Elisha Dasham, and I'll be in the program together with Rachel Tansey. Good afternoon,
Afternoon, Sela.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Great, thank you so much. All right, our viewers at home, do keep a day with us. Drop your comment on our Facebook and YouTube. We'd love to hear what your own views are concerning this story and others that we will be looking at this afternoon. Now, Rachel, this has brought us back again to talking about politics. Just when we thought that, we are beginning to recover from politics and then concentrating on governance. And here we're seeing again that appeal court, there have been a lot of shaking by the appeal court. Yeah. Just when we have at the tribunal, a lot of people weren't, but then we're seeing that the appeal court is actually sacking people. We remember that incident in Plateau State where we saw a number of lawmakers were being sacked by the appeal court. And then again, we're seeing that in Zamfara State, the appeal court have actually sacked Governor Lawan. And, I couldn't help but take my mind back to the issue of the insecurity over there and the fact that the governor was saying that federal government actually came in without his consent and all of that. But here we're saying it's another fresh story altogether where we're saying that about 3 local government areas have been affected by this election. Now, the question that will be running in the minds of Nigerians is the fact that are we saying that INEC did not do its homework well? Or why are we having, because there are certain criteria or reason why the appeal court is saying the fact that I feel that these 3 local government areas, it seems the election didn't really hold there, so they need to be a rerun. And we know it's actually shocking because, the first governor, the incumbent governor there, Matawali, was actually, in a shocking way, was kicked off his seat, and then we had Lawan of the People Democratic Party taking over now. I just want to have your own inputs about issues like these, because we know today, even in Abuja, we're having that of Kano State, where we see there is tension in Kano and in Plateau State as well. And then we're waiting to see that of Nasarawa and other states also, that the case are in appeal court presently.
Sele, first of all, I think for the case of Zamfara, I'm not comfortable with how many man panel it was in the first place that made a decision. This is something very crucial in a way and sensitive, and you're having 3 panel people deciding who or what is the outcome of the polls for 2023 in March. And I believe that that's already a very small number to decide that. We can look at 5 and above, because when you are having just 3 people, is 2 against 1. That's how it has to be. So you make the number still very little, but when you're going 5 and above, it could be 3 against 2, it could be 4 against 1. Either way, the ratio is perfect when it comes to deciding certain things. And then another thing that I'm not comfortable with, and it still goes back to INEC, is we saw the election recently in Kogi State, and we saw 3 local government areas being affected, 59 units, and yet a winner was declared. And we are having in Zamfara State 3 local government areas having the problem, and then an election is nullified. So I don't understand. It doesn't make sense for me in a lot of ways. If INEC can declare a winner in Kogi State and 3 local government where having a problem, 59 units precisely, and it's been declared, and whenever they will hold the election, it will. And then we're having in Zamfara the same amount of I know the number, of course, the population won't be the same. However, we're looking at the same number when it comes to the 3 local government. It's 3 in Kogi, 3 in Zamfara, and for this, because this is one of the reasons we are having the panel nullifying this election and saying there's a need for rerun. And then you wonder, why are we allowing such gaps in our electoral system? Why are we allowing such gap? Why do certain things stand in another place and not stand in another place? What are all of these things surrounding? And then you make it just raise a lot of questions regarding elections in this country. And then we really need answers. We need answers from INEC. We need answers from our judiciary. We need answers everywhere. Let's understand, because it's not tallying, and it should be, because what should stand in certain place. If election couldn't hold in 3 local government areas and a winner was declared, then it shouldn't nullify in another state again, because the same measure that was used to, there should be another reason in a lot of way that should cause this election to be nullified. Other than,
but Rachel, one of the reasons they gave here, the court held that it was wrong for INEC to rely on information it obtained from INEC's IREF portal to collate the final result of the governorship election. This is the reason the court is giving for making this election inconclusive.
Well, this same court in the presidential election said the IREF is, by the way, INEC are not in the position to for sure give result or translate result on the IREF portal. So what are we saying? For me, I'm just saying things that are not corresponding.
It's not actually tallying.
Exactly.
The question, Richard, just like you're raising this concern, the question would be, why do we have the IREF in the first place?
In the first place.
If the court is saying that it was wrong for INEC to rely on this IREF to actually collate the final result, of course, that was where it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be displayed digitally for Nigerians to know that this vote was actually, and then looking at the margin between the APC and the PDP, it's not very much. If you look at the margin. So I believe that these 3 local government areas that have been affected will go a long way to decide this number. Well, just like you're saying, in Kogi, we're saying that a winner was already declared, despite the fact that tomorrow, according to INEC, they will be having an election, and then in Zamfara, we're seeing that they're calling it inconclusive. So it's more like things are not actually weighing right when you look at this whole thing. But we hope that, just like we said, the right interpretation for our laws sometimes is very mandatory, and is very for people to know that, okay, if this is what the court is saying, if this is what the Constitution, the Electoral Act is saying, then we should follow it and let Nigerians have a clear picture about it. So I think for this whole case about Zamfara, there's little or nothing Nigerians can say about it, rather than waiting for the dates that INEC said. Now, you see, Richard, this have taken us back to the reason why we're having even the former president saying that we need to do something about all these litigations we are having, or else we'll keep having off-season election. Now you're seeing where we're headed to.
Of course,
eventually we are having another election in Zamfara. That's another off-season election again, because you're having a rerun.
Yes, and this also boils down to what I said in the morning concerning these kind of discrepancies that will for sure keep happening, but then the process, and I said that the fault or the problem is not even in the off-season election. Is in the electoral process in the first place. It is, because if INEC was able to do certain things in Zamfara and get the result from the IREF, that is what Nigerians expected to have been done everywhere. And then we see now, okay, it was successful in one state, it became the problem. It was unsuccessful at the federal government, it was still the problem. And then you wonder, when are we going to start getting this right? Because what are we supposed to work with? The fact that it was successful and it was a problem, or that it wasn't and it was still a problem? Either way, and we keep saying, I know it is a game of number, but this is, regardless of whether the margin is short or no, or not, if this is a law, if election is, it has to take place in all of, regardless of the margin. It has to take place in everywhere. Results have to be collated everywhere and then put together and say, you know what, even if the vote in the end from these local government areas will not count and support it, that is the only way an election has been finalized in a state. You can't declare a winner yet, regardless of the margin, because election was not concluded. And we're seeing the same. Even if it's close, you still even if it is close, or you're waiting to see, okay, these 3 local government areas will be able to differentiate or determine either way. Election is not concluded yet. And this is, how will I put it, like, this has to be the same everywhere, regardless of what is the situation. It shouldn't abide in one place and not abide in another place. And then it just keeps making us wonder, what are we doing in this country, because it looks like we don't know what we're doing. It looks like we're confused. It looks like everything just the wind just blows in whatever direction, and for sure nobody knows where we're heading, most especially when it comes to politics and elections in this country.
Well, Rachel, I think with all of this, we can keep talking from now till tomorrow, but we are hoping that the right thing will be done, just like you're saying. When it was done the right way, it was a problem. It wasn't done the right way, it's still a problem. So you're beginning to wonder, where are we going to have the balance? And then we are hoping that we'll come to a time whereby politics will not keep playing out in everything, because eventually you keep seeing politics keep, interfering in almost everything we're doing in this country. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. That is to say that we are waiting for the date for re-election again in Zamfara State, and then tomorrow we'll be seeing what is going to happen in Kogi State, in those other 3 local government areas. Now again, still talking about economy and then how we can thrive better. We're seeing the finance minister saying that we cannot continue to rely on borrowing to actually run Nigeria, because we are running on deficit for as long as a lot of Nigerians can remember. There was a time where Nigeria can stand on its own and even borrow to other countries. But reverse is the case right now, where we are seeing that Nigeria over the years has been depending on borrowing. And then when you even look at our revenue, we spend about 98% of our revenue to actually pay off our debts. So that means we're left with just 2%, and there's little or nothing 2% of our revenue we can do. And here we're seeing the finance minister saying we need to look into a better way of doing things, because believe you me, a lot of countries right now have increased their interest rate because they're trying to control inflation in their own country. So what the implication is for us as a country is that the more we borrow, paying up with the interest is going to be quite expensive on us. And so the finance minister is giving a suggestion. What can we do as a country so we don't keep on borrowing over and over? There was a time in the former administration where a lot of Nigerians were asking, give us the reason why you keep borrowing, because Nigerians cannot really place a finger on what we're using the money for. And the former president said that they were using the money on infrastructure. Now, when you talk about infrastructure, talking about roads, you're talking about a lot of sectors. But then, till date, we're having bad roads. Our hospitals are not well established. Talking about education, you can keep mentioning over and over, and then you cannot help but wonder, so what do we use this money for as a country? At a time like this, where a lot of things, we're seeing that till date, Nigeria's inflation is not cooling down. Where other countries' own is cooling, our own keeps going high. Yesterday we saw the October inflation, which is about 27.33. So by December, it might reach 30%. So these are quite a number of things we need to look into as a country. Where are we heading? And what can we do about controlling our borrowing as it is presently?
If I say this, it will sound like, what are you saying? But it's not bad to borrow, Sele. It's not a bad thing to borrow, because even the world great economy, we are seeing at some point borrowed before they got to where they are. But for Nigeria, it has just been mismanagement of funds, because we should have been in the level where we have borrowed and have grown. But we borrowed and haven't grown. So it just, the English, the simple fact there, not the English, the fact is that we kept on doing the wrong things with our borrowed funds. Is that simple? And then when we say infrastructure, if you're being asked what have you been doing with the borrowed funds, and you say it is infrastructure, there's nothing wrong with that, because we can use Plateau State as a case study. And when we had better road channels, we saw how businesses thrived, because people now had access to places that wasn't accessible in the first place. We saw more businesses coming up due to the fact that road was made available in certain places. So yes, is having roads good? No, very, very well. We needed infrastructure. Of course, it also contributes to the economy of a country, no doubt. But these are the same roads. We are having over 2.9 trillion naira lost to road contracts fraud. We saw that on the paper. So you are giving your money into infrastructure and you're not following it up. And a federal government of Nigeria is also finding himself in the issue of fraud like a common man that did not go to school, that probably fell into the hands of fraudsters and all of that. And then you wonder, like, who are we kidding in this country? If you will give out trillions and billions of naira, and then you will sit down lamenting like a common man or an uneducated man concerning falling into the hands of fraudsters and all of that. And then it's pathetic in a lot of ways, but then we can allow them to wallow in such things and give it as an excuse to us as a country. But then what are we doing to make sure that we are not repeating our past mistakes? It's high time we start channeling this money the right way. And then when you look at our budget, you will see that a lot of things don't make sense and they are not tallying, because what should get certain funding is not getting, and certain things are just being allowed to just exactly to die off and leave it there, because we are looking at a balance of trade here which we don't have, because we are in deficit. We banned some products and now we have opened our borders to more of them. So it's just more and more deficit. And when you look at the expenditures, you will see that personnel cost is going more in, is consuming more exactly of our budget and all of that. And then you wonder, we're just borrowing and eating with our mouth. We're literally eating the money instead of investing it and then generating revenue. We are seeing that subsidy has been removed from petroleum, for example, and we are supposed to hear that some mega project for our refineries should be up. And we, in fact, the federal government is no longer updating us concerning how much and all of that. So where are we heading to? Nigerian government have the resources, they know exactly what they need to do, and I just hope that we have leaders that will wake up and do the needful.
You know, Rachel, when you mentioned we're doing more like a blanket judgment, but let us pick out when we talk about infrastructure. You and I went through the issue of the money the federal government was complaining that they were injecting into refineries.
Yes.
These are refineries that are not functioning. These are refineries that for the past 10 years, nothing, no product was coming out from there.
Yes.
So just like you said, who are we actually kidding here? Because believe you me, Rachel, when you said that Nigeria is falling into fraudsters like a common man, believe you me, the fraudsters are in Nigeria. They are not outside Nigeria.
Yes.
I mean, did we bring these contractors outside Nigeria?
No,
of course not. The contract was given to a particular ministry or a minister.
Yes.
So why not get that ministry actually? We saw where Senate were mad at ministries, departments, and agencies. In fact, right now, part of the thing that Wale Edu is even saying is the fact that some of the ministries do not actually, like say, bring in or refund the revenue that they generate. Rather, like maybe after a year when they get the money. So how can you be able to audit all of this money? When you give a particular ministry money, just like you said, let there be a follow-up.
Yes,
just like you said, the government is not even keeping us updated of how much we're able to save ever since we've removed the fuel subsidy. So quite a number of things, and we can keep talking over and over about it. And just like you keep saying, the fact that the government know where the problem is. But we are hoping that they will do it. I mean, questions such as the supplementary budget. We'll keep talking about it. Nigerians are yet to see palliative. It will shock you to see that an individual is even richer than a state. How come? When you are, it shouldn't be. So I'm just, I believe this is the same thoughts Nigerians are having, that rather than wallowing in self-pity, we should wake up to the reality on ground. Fix the refineries. I mean, these are one of the places, if we think that we want to talk about the issue of making sure that we meet up to our quota, making 2 million barrels per day, fine, fix the refineries. I mean, these are refineries that not like they are totally dead. They just need 1 or 2 things, and then before you realize it, they're functioning again. But it was in the same paper where we saw an expert saying, even when we fix it, we'll still be exporting. Why? So these are questions that Nigerians need intelligent answers to, because believe you me, Nigerians are critical thinkers. When you say 1 or 2, they sit down and analyze things deeply. So you cannot just give them any cheap answer and they will actually swallow it in. So we are looking forward to the fact that if the finance minister have actually seen it as a problem, what is the way forward now? It's one thing for you to actually complain about certain things, but it's another thing for us as a country to sit down, come back to the drawing table. It's something I always say, because it is very possible to fix Nigeria. It is very possible to go back to that glory of being the giant of Africa. I mean, here we saw where South Africa is taking over Nigeria. And I said, when you look at the way things are happening on the paper, we saw where even South Africa is trying to say they are no longer going to be using DSTV. And I make mention of the fact that I think we can do that as well, because I mean, why don't we have something indigenous to us where we see other people consuming and we generate revenue from there? So these are things that we need our leaders to sit down and take critical and say, okay, if this has not been working so far, why don't we look into other sectors that can actually generate more revenue for us, rather than looking at exploiting other sectors that are struggling to stand on their own to actually get revenue from. So we hope that as a country we'll actually look into that. We're quickly, before we round the show, we're seeing that our Judicial Council are actually trying to screen some justices. We recall when our Chief Justice of Nigeria said that we're running short of justice in the Supreme Court, where we saw a number of which ones retired, and so there is a need for screening so we can actually have, you know, enough justices after complaining with so many cases. I mean, the Supreme Court has been startled with. You will really agree that there is a need for additional hands. So I think it's across onto the screening of all of these justices so that we can have ample number of our justice, and then so I will not see corruption eating deeply into there, because we saw what was happening. A lot of Nigerians coming out say that the judiciary has been corrupt, it has been invaded, there's no separation of power whatsoever, and that. So we're just hoping that with this screening we'll be able to see a balance in another arm of government again.
And of course, like, we will hope not to see politics in play here, because over the months it feels like the judicial system of Nigeria is also playing politics, so that we won't see the bow and go kind of scenario in the Senate and in the House of Representatives when we're seeing the screening of the ministers, but rather we will see that we have a judiciary system that, of course, will still stand out, will still be different. And of course, these justices are in need, because we saw even before the final verdict in the tribunal, the Supreme Court and the Atiku Obi's petition, we had some justices resigning also and taking a bow and leaving. And so there is a need for them, but we just want to see that the people that are joining those who are there are sincere people, because we want to see a country where maybe there was a little failure in a lot of ways, maybe in failure in the sense that Nigeria are beginning to lose their trust, but perhaps with more. Maybe let's say they had a workload, they couldn't do their work as it should be, and they just
now
gave
they have additional
now
hands.
Exactly, they have more helping hands for them to sit down and be more thorough. So perhaps we will not see the repeat of what have happened in the past, but something better. Let's just hope that that will be the outcome of this elevation of these judges to the Supreme Court.
And we hope they also look into the welfare of our justices, so that they don't fall into all of this trap of, you know, being bought and all of that. Well, thank you, Rachel, for doing the program with me. And thank you to our viewers and supporters at home for keeping the day with us on Nigeria Now. Until we come again, do have a blessed weekend ahead. Bye.